I'm Tabitha Nixon, and I'd like to start out by thanking my husband, who's my cameraman, and my friends who have come out to join me today to help me with this presentation. Speaking of Friends, do you remember that episode of Friends where Phoebe is trying to get Monica to make her grandmother's recipe, only for Monica to find out at the end that it's a Toll House recipe? Well, this could easily turn out to be the same kind of thing, because I learned this recipe from my mom, who's been making it for well over 30 years, and she has no idea where she got it from. So I'll be teaching you all how to make pudding cookies. This speech will enable each of you to be able to make your own pudding cookies. I will be discussing history, ingredients, and directions. So let's get into some fun cookie history and ingredient facts. Linda Stradley said in The History of Cookies that the first cookies were actually made by accident by cooks who would take small amounts of cake batter to test their oven temperatures. These small amounts of batter are what we now know today as cookies. Baking soda is a chemical leavener which creates carbon dioxide within the dough, causing rise. It also needs an acid and a base to help create this rise, whereas baking powder already has the base and the acid within its ingredients, so it doesn't need help from any other ingredients within a recipe, says Annalise in Baking Powder versus Baking Soda. Softened butter reacts differently in recipes. Fred Decker in 2016 said softened butter has crystals of fat, and when creamed with sugar, creates air pockets throughout the dough, which when baked will inflate with the carbon dioxide from the baking soda, which is what gives it a light, fluffy cookie with decent height. According to Escalante in 2016, sugar can be interchangeably used with brown sugar, but it shouldn't always be used because brown sugar tends to make a more moist final product. All brown sugar is sugar mixed with molasses. Brown sugar also contains the acid that the baking soda needs to cause the rise for a fluffy cookie, says Stella Parks in Cookie Science. Now that we've covered some of the history, let's move on to how much each ingredient we need for this recipe. So we'll start with the base ingredients. You'll need 2 1/4 cups all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon baking soda, 1 cup or 2 sticks of softened butter, 1/4 cup sugar, 3/4 cup brown sugar, 1 teaspoon vanilla, 1 small package instant pudding, and 2 eggs. Now that covers the base ingredients. Some extra ingredients you might want to add in are a 12-ounce bag of some sort of chocolate chip or M&Ms, or 1 cup chopped nut of your choosing. I will get into the flexibility of this recipe with the extra ingredients and the pudding a little later. So now that we've talked about how much of each ingredient, we're going to get into how to put it all together, the directions. So in this bowl, I already have the flour. I will be adding the baking soda and mixing it together. Once this is mixed, we're going to set it aside for use later. Before I continue on to the big bowl, make sure you preheat your oven to 375 degrees so that you don't have to wait for it to preheat when you're done mixing everything. Just a time saver tip. So in this bowl, I already have the butter. I'll be adding both sugars, a teaspoon of vanilla, or just a little more because I like it, and the pudding. Alright, now I'm going to cream all of this together, and as I'm creaming it together, I'm going to go back to that flexibility of the recipe. Tonight I'm using a banana cream pudding with semi-sweet chocolate chips. However, you could easily substitute the chocolate chips for chopped walnuts, and that'll give a cookie that tastes like banana nut bread. Another enjoyable combination is butterscotch pudding with butterscotch chips. It's not as overwhelming as it might sound. Another same combo is pistachio pudding with extra pistachio nuts, and that actually gives the batter a naturally green color, which is really fun to hand out at St. Patrick's Day and Christmas, as Matt knows. And then for you chocolate lovers, you could mix chocolate pudding and chocolate chips, and there's an array of different types of chocolate pudding and chocolate chips, so you can have fun even just creating what your favorite chocolatey cookie is. Some other things that we like to add into a chocolate pudding are peanut butter chips, or white chocolate chips really stand out. My personal favorite is adding shredded coconut to chocolate pudding. So this is just a fun, flexible recipe, and you can be creative with it. The kids really love picking out those ingredients and helping out, so they love shopping with me for it too. All right, I think I finally have this creamed together. So now we're gonna add the eggs and incorporate them. Does anybody have any questions or comments or any other ideas of combinations to come up with? No, quiet crowd. All right.
Did you put cocoa in them if you wanted to make it include a chocolate thing?
Possibly, I've never tried that, but that would be interesting to experiment with. There was, back in my early 20s, I tried to make like a hot fudge sundae cookie. Those were the stickiest cookies I ever made, because I actually tried using like hot fudge sauce and caramel sauce and some strawberry saucy stuff with chunks of strawberry in it. That was the only time I ever experimented with that one. Alright, that's pretty well incorporated. Now we're going to go back to the flour mixture, add a little bit of thyme. I usually only add a third of this at a time. When I'm working with the kids, I go as low as a tenth of this. Otherwise, they end up with flour all over the place, and the cookies don't really tend to turn out very well because it's missing all of this flour. If you've ever worked with kids, you know exactly what I'm talking about. All right, so this is going to take some time to incorporate. So once you have all the flour mixture in with the batter and incorporated, that's when you add all your extra ingredients, whether it's chips and nuts, one of each, whatever you have going. But I'm going to switch this out with an already prepared dough for time's sake. That's kind of what it looks like. By a tablespoon, drop on an ungreased baking sheet. Bake for 8 to 10 minutes or until the tops are lightly golden. And this yields, well, I have a confession to make. I am used to yielding about 4 dozen cookies, but apparently I've been using twice the size scooper. So with a smaller scooper, I'm thinking it's probably going to yield about 8 dozen cookies. So it depends on what size cookie you want, how much you want to get out of it. Then you obviously bring it out of the oven, you let it cool, and then you can enjoy your pudding cookies. So, in closing, I have informed all of you how to make pudding cookies. We have discussed the history, the ingredients, and the directions. So if any of you are familiar with this recipe or recognize it, know where it originated from, please let me know, because I would love to give credit where it is due. Other than that, please go home and enjoy your own creative batch of pudding cookies. Thank you.